We live in the era of innovation, and especially in the era of democratized innovation. And this is just the beginning, right? It will be more and more easy to write your own applications. You don't even need to code anymore.
Person who pushes and pushes and pushes
and what was the evolution of how AI became that big. And even if the model hallucinates, it's interesting for creativity.
Mahdi, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So, Mahdi, you studied at one of the best universities in Germany, then joined MIT for research in Founder of AI, which is one of the world's best institutions for AI research. So I'm just wondering, what is really your driving force? How did that all start? Could you tell us about the beginning of your journey, and how did you start AdaIQ?
I think it all starts with one very, very human and very simple thing, which is curiosity, right? I always had a great curiosity for natural sciences and for technology, but also for a lot of the, things that make us human, and the phenomena that all of us experience when living in a society. So I thought, very early that I need to study something where I can bring both the world of technology together with the world of understanding what it means to be human and to be human in the society together. And this, very organically has led me to RWTH Aachen University, where I studied, mechanical engineering and business administration, and did also computer science. And during that time was also engaged in some of the social initiatives in the city. And I was very lucky, I would say, that starting with my childhood, I got a scholarship from the Stadtstiftung, met incredible people in a really interesting hub. Then when I joined Aachen, got a scholarship of the Studienstiftung des Deutschen Volkes, and was very lucky to receive that too, where I've met, most of my best friends until today, and many of the, disruptive minds that have shaped my personality. So I always try to, Aachen, when you're there, you will see that there's so many talented people, but really entrepreneurship is, during the time when I studied, was still very early. This mindset of what it means to found something and what it takes to found something, right, was not discussed a lot. Of course, you had these, you had thermodynamics where everyone was scared of, and you had all these crazy subjects where I learned so much from great professors and researchers. But I always try to escape from, the set environment. So I did an internship in Beijing. I did research at Chalmers University in Gothenburg, which is also a great university. A lot of research on organizational behavior with Professor Olila, who's a wonderful professor. And I learned a lot of, in addition to the technical parts in Aachen, I learned a lot of the human parts and sociological, psychological parts that are needed when you want to found a company. So after my master's, or still during my master's, at the end of my master's, I asked myself, okay, now I've understood, a lot of the basics in natural sciences. I've understood very well how to work with data, and how to make sense of vast amounts of data. I I understood very well how to, what it takes to really lead something as a human, right? These really basic principles. I had a lot of philosophical discussions about that in the research groups that I was in. And then I said, okay, I need to go to an environment, just as the Stadtstiftung was a hub of interesting people. The Studienstiftung was a hub of interesting people. I need to go to an environment that takes all of the things that I learned and bundles them together and just creates this crazy energy. And this is how I've started at Northeastern University in Boston first. And then later joined also a lab at MIT. And then AdaIQ is a spin out of the university. It was already, the research was already going. And I can tell you maybe in the second part what Ada is doing, but generally to the overall story. The research was ongoing. There were papers written. I joined as someone who would give, insights from the heavy industry that we have in Germany, and bringing that together from my experience in Aachen, but also from some very great internships that I did. And at the end, the professors asked me, "Hey, would you be open to co-found that with us?" And we did it.
Great. Maybe that could be an advice for someone. What is Staatsstiftung? Maybe you can tell us a bit about it.
Sure. So Stadtstiftung is a foundation that gives scholarships to students that are in school, and supports them with money, but also research like a computer, and most importantly with seminars where they can meet other interesting people. So it's a really Germany-wide network of highly interesting individuals that are not only good at in school, but also very socially engaged and want to change the world for the better.
So you already talked about a couple of these environments, but how important do you think is the environment in shaping a person that has ambitions or wants to achieve something? How important do you think is the power of these environments?
Yeah, so I think the very, very good question. Environment is, of course, extremely important. The most important thing are the enablers of people that listen to you when you have crazy ideas, that say, "Hey, you're interesting. Here's another person that you should talk to." And then the next person says, "This is very interesting. Think about this, but here's also another person that you should talk to." And this is how you somehow at MIT, and this is research from the group that I was in, we call this collaborative innovation networks. So you start with your crazy idea, asking a few people, and they ask others, and then you start this movement, right? And these movements can only happen in environments where people are open for it. And therefore, an open-minded environment for any type of idea and any type of movement. A startup is only just a movement, just like any type of other social movement, right? You have this crazy idea, you're just this crazy color in this gray space, and you want to be seen, and you want to paint everything colorful, right? So environments are extremely important. But also I have to say, when you are in an environment where resources are scarce, necessity is the mother of innovation, right? So you start to innovate in different ways with less resources, and you build up a resilience that is different to others. But there's this threshold to how much resilience you should have and develop. It's always good to be an environment that is very open-minded, colorful, and friendly.
You obviously have experienced both the US environment, but also the German environment. My perception is that in the US, the entrepreneurs dream a lot bigger and have a lot more, are a lot more visionaries than in Germany. Is that something that you also think, or is there not a lot of differences between founders in the US and in Germany?
Yeah, so this is an excellent question. I think there's, as always, pros and cons to both sides. But you're right that in the US, you dream big. You start with an idea. You start at zero, really with nothing but an idea, and you make sure that people around you understand that idea. And as I said before, you start these movements and this narrative around this particular idea. And more importantly, you dream big. Others know that you can fail, and you yourself know that you can fail, but it's not a problem in the US. You fail very fast. You stand up, try something else, and you are empowered in every step of changing your path, trying again, right? I've got to know many people that tried 4, 5, 6 companies before they had the 7th, 8th that was successful. And it's crazy that it can happen in such way. This is the good thing, right? Let me tell you about, in comparison to Germany, we are still very cautious on many things that come to, people having interesting ideas. We don't give the founders the voice that they deserve. And yeah, you can call it also, an arrogance, I would say, towards, I have a certain standing, and I can talk to someone who is very young, like you guys, right? You can be 18 years old and have an interesting idea. Doesn't matter. And in the US, I've actually very often connected to people that are much older than I am. I mean, also look at my professors there that I've co-founded the company with. They're much older than I am, and still at the same time, we were partners, and it didn't matter. So this is like pros and cons from the type of mentality to appreciate the ideas, push innovation, fail fast. I think we can learn a lot from that in Germany. Although I have to say also, this narrative of dreaming big and pushing is also a very destructive narrative if you, as a founder, don't really know your boundaries, right? And this is something I think that especially is true for founders that have special ambition, I would call, because they were, have a background where they were not so lucky early in their life, not so privileged, and just want to change the status quo and change the world. There is always someone to tell you, you can do it, right? You yourself have the responsibility to say, okay, I think now is the time that I change direction. And this is very difficult in the US, where in Germany, you get a lot of good critique, very honest critique, right? That you can, of course, a lot of it is connected to people being afraid that you actually do a change. But I think also a lot of people criticize you in a way that you should think more critically about the path that you are taking, and it challenges us, a little bit more on the ups and downs and pros and cons of following a crazy idea.
Now, coming to your crazy idea, AdaIQ. What is it actually? So what do you do?
So to put it in very simple words, is Ada revolutionizes the new product development process for all kinds of physical products. So, in fashion, automotive, furniture. And the way we do it is actually that if you look at the product development process, innovation process in these big companies, you will see that not so much data actually flows into the creation and evaluation of products before they go to the market. And there is this PDMA study that is product development study that is being done, and it has changed for decades, that 40% of all consumer products that are released to the markets, they fail or underperform on the market. This really statistic that has not been changed for decades. So why is that? There's just not enough data in the process of evaluating products. And so AdaIQ takes all the different data sets, for example, people reviewing products online, transcripts of people reviewing products on YouTube, together with, very interesting data on like IoT data, so product usage, all that information to help designers design new product and evaluate the newly designed products in terms of how well they will be aligned with market needs. So you have like let's say a collective intelligence in one tool. You don't have to call 30, 40, 50, 60 people and ask them how well does that shoe look? Would you buy it? You tap into the collective intelligence that is out there and evaluate your product before you even prototype it, right? And before you even put money in it. So it's a immense cost reduction and time reduction, while at the same time increasing productivity very dramatically.
Because actually trying to produce digital twins of ideal customers, and on that basis, like with your data, and then on that basis you try to evaluate designs and products, or is it basically not twin, but only based on those information that you gather, you try to just analyze the market and also how well a product would fit into the market?
Yeah, so I think digital twin is an interesting concept, but it's, I think, a dimension too low. I would say that what we do is we bring many different dimensions. So the market is one dimension, the demographics of people is one dimension, the design aesthetics is one dimension, right? How did design evolve? Design of particular products these aesthetics is like something very like historical data, right? So you bring all that together, and AI has really the power to make sense of it. And I think using all that information also helps us to reduce the products that are brought to market that people don't buy and just throw away.
To make it a bit more understandable for the audience, how does it work? So let's say I want to design a new microphone. Does it work like ChatGPT, where I just have to write everything what I need for the design, and then it puts out a product? And how is it?
So there's the different, excellent question. There are different tools, right? You can just browse our web application and see what the collective wisdom says on microphones. But you can also just design your microphone on your tablet, describe what you want to do, what your beliefs are, and just upload it into our product evaluation model. And it will match renderings with existing design pictures that we have, and your product description with descriptions that we have. and give you a real-time update on will people buy it or not, and also who is more likely to buy it, people in Germany or in the US, or people in Berlin or in Frankfurt. Right.
Very interesting approach you guys are taking at Ada. Do you think it's possible to measure the accuracy of those data with real-time evaluation of the products, or is there an approach you guys are taking in that regard?
So yeah, you're touching a really important point. I mean, this is about trends, and trends are very, very difficult. You know, there's a huge science behind it, which makes our tasks also very challenging, but the AI, therefore, very interesting. So trust is a huge factor in that process, especially when you work with designers who are very fond of their ideas, which is great. And we always say we empower that. So accuracy, not every step in the innovation process needs to have high accuracy. Think of, you know, creativity and at the beginning of the innovation process, ideation. You can use our information also for ideation. You start with that. There, even if the model hallucinates, it's interesting for creativity. It increases creativity. And then later, if you go to the stages of design, we ensure that we have the expert models that accurately predict and match the information with our data.
So you talked about it, how deep that is, how scientific that is, working on such an AI project. What advice would you give to someone looking to start an AI company without technical background, like myself?
So I don't think the technical background per se is very, very important. Of course, you should understand basics of AI, and AI is, you know, one big buzzword, but actually you should understand statistics and read about, you know, how do transformers work, and what was the evolution of how AI became that big. But I think if you want to start an AI company, if I'm going to be really honest with you, the most important thing is team, right? The right people. You will go through crazy ups and crazy downs, and it can happen today that you are, you know, at the best day with your startup, and tomorrow that you have the worst, and you need just people around you that are ready for this and open for this, right? So I would say the most important thing, you know, put the technology aside, really. The most important thing are smart and hungry and very, you know, also outside of the box thinkers that have a big heart. And I just described Einstein and Mother Teresa together. But this is the people that you should look for, right? And they exist. So I would always say, people work with people that you feel comfortable with, and everything else you can learn. We live in the era of innovation, and especially in the era of democratized innovation. And this is just the beginning, right? It will be more and more easy to you know, write your own applications. You don't even need to code anymore to get your first MVP going. So yeah, I would say take the AI out the beginning. Just look for people.
So yeah, that's a very good tip. Obviously, the speed by which AI has been developing in the last 1 or 2 years has been crazy. And the big question is, like, obviously there are a lot of companies who choose different verticals to optimize works and make work more efficient with AI. How do you think is the development of AI? Is it a problem or is it a risk for those companies? Like, how soon do you think the basic AI model will be able to provide you basically with information in all those verticals, for example, product design and others?
Yeah, very, very good question. I think we are already there. It's only that the companies need to adapt the technology now that exists there. But I think if you look at many of the interesting startups in all of the verticals, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening and people developing interesting stuff. It's only that, you have these big elephants that need to dance, and you have to make them dance. And there is a lot of things that are needed to make these big companies dance, right? It starts with regulation, and it ends with like culture and openness to include some of these startups, and the mindset to do that. But I think technologically we are ready, and if you, in a perfect world, if you would put, a hungry startup with a company together that has all this great data, I'm pretty sure within a week they can build something where the company can have high productivity gains or additional product features. The only interesting thing, I think, is, we still don't understand the business model behind, how the world will look like when AI has, or AI agents, which are, very soon will rule a lot of and flood the world and rule a lot of things within organizations. We don't yet have a solution for managing these innovation networks that will appear, and also capitalizing on what's coming out of them. Right? We know B2B SaaS business models, but I think new business models will arise where in each vertical you will see other types of, collaborative platforms between humans and machines. And I'm not only talking about AI, but also about embodied AI in robotics. This will all create, new innovation network. And the most important thing is the challenge to orchestrate, all these different actors then. And this is, I think, an area where I see a lot of potential for coming startups.
Let's say I want to build an AI startup. You already mentioned a niche where people can look at, but generally, how can I find potential gaps?
It's very easy. So actually, you can make a challenge. Just challenge yourself every day. Go out, ask a person if that person would share something with you. AI needs data. Mm-hmm. The companies that have data have a very strong moat, that have proprietary data have a very strong moat. And in the end, it's about you convincing others that using their data they will benefit from that if they would give it to you and you would build something great out of it. You don't need technical knowledge for that. You just need to be able to talk to people and convince them of your idea. So I would always think from the lens of what are strong moats, right? And I talked about team. This is, in my opinion, a strong moat. I talked about, proprietary data. This is a strong moat. Business operations is, in my opinion, also a very strong moat. To educate yourself with all the different things that I learned in my journey with Ada, right? Everything from marketing to sales to PR, and also the things that are not technical at all, but more business oriented. So I would say convincing, like looking for industries that you are interested in, then reaching out to people in these industries, seeing what type of information do they have that I can build interesting stuff on top, and would they appreciate this this new application that I would present? So am I really solving a pain point? That's the most important thing. If you're pitching something and you don't have someone in the room who says, I need to buy this, you're not there. You have not found this one thing where you should focus on, right? A lot of people are friendly, they will nod and they will tell you it's interesting. But if you think you are in a room with people that can make a decision and nobody dares to say this is interesting, then you're not there yet. And I think you just need an interesting idea, slides, and a professional email. You can text the whole world and pitch your ideas and step by step reach an idea that is ready to go to the market.
We've talked a lot about the technical side of starting a startup, but there are also a lot of characteristic attributes that a person should have, for example, resilience. And since a lot of our audience are actually in the YFN community, which is mostly for young people who are interested in this area, also a lot of students who are still at the schools. So what do you think are, other than technical side, the best ways to develop one's character to become ideal entrepreneurs in the future?
This is a very interesting question, because I would challenge it a little bit in saying that there is no ideal entrepreneur. Every human is different, and there are different characters. And I've met all types of entrepreneurs, the ones that are more, introvert, that only look at their shoes when they talk to you, and not in your eyes, but are brilliant entrepreneurs, and build amazing stuff. And then there are ones that are very outgoing, and very resilient, and also the ones that are just, really, really want to push boundaries of whatever environment that they are in. So I think, I can say that there is not this ideal person, and you're not born an entrepreneur. As soon as you care about something, and I'm just at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, right? I can learn from you have to have that mindset that you can learn from every human being every day that is outside that you meet, right? This is the entrepreneurial mindset, and I think everyone can do that, and then it comes to bringing things to life. You can have many ideas, but creating these movements, as I said before, and really, this, reality distortion field, just as, Steve Jobs did it very often in the areas that he pitched things to people, is very, very, very important, and everyone can do it. The thing is, that I have to admit, and I think this is very direct, and a different view on resilience and on ambition, that many founders have, especially when I'm speaking to founders with a immigrant background, especially when you have not felt that, the privileges that many others have in society. You have this crazy ambition. It's good. It helps you, right? You have resilience, you have ambition. It's good. you want to conquer the world. You want to create a better world for the kids that you will have, right? For example, this is something that I hear very often from many founders that I've met in Germany with an immigrant background. And I always say that, good, it will help you in the beginning, but there is a high risk, really high risk, that you start to create an arrogance and you start to build up personality that actually stops to listen to people. And you start to create an ego system instead of an ecosystem, right? This is something that I think, especially people that are very hungry and ambitious, have to be very aware of. If you're going on that path, you have to reflect a lot on your behavior and hold yourself accountable for, am I listening to my environment in a way that I can learn from it, from everyone that I meet? Because every small connection can lead to something big, right? And having that humbleness and that openness will ultimately lead you to success.
That's also one of the points why we started this podcast, because we saw that if you're a successful immigrant, then you're a person who pushes and pushes and pushes and forgets that you also had a lot of privilege and also a lot of luck. So we want to reflect on it. Also, be a bit louder for other immigrants who don't have this privilege and inform others about it, that, hey, I'm successful, yeah, but I had these privileges, I had a lot of luck to be a successful immigrant, and there are a lot of immigrants out there who are not successful because there are a lot of problems out there for them. So what were your problems as an immigrant? Did you had any difficulties in your early age as a child just because of your immigrant background?
Typical things. Discrimination is in our societies something that is still widespread, and of course I've experienced it, especially when growing up in smaller villages. That's, I think, something that I've just learned to cope with. But I have to also say that, it's also it's a challenge, of course, but it also gives you this ability to be humble. And this ability to be humble is something really, really powerful. You can't buy it. You can't get it somewhere else. And if you've been in a loving family that didn't have a lot of privileges, you had love in your life. Sounds very cheesy, but this is also something you can't buy. Also something very special. So I think what always helped me is to be very humble and, think about, I can get all the books that I need from the library. No need to buy them. And I have all these people in my life that love me. Also, no need to buy it. I can't even do it, right, if I wanted to. These are things that always, gave me a safe ground. And of course, the people that around me believed in me and saw, like, I had many teachers and mentors. So always make sure that you get those individuals in your life, because you need to have, these people that tell you that whatever you are going through, you can be better. You can make the best out of you, no matter what, right?
Are there any considerations, ethical considerations you have regarding AI and the replacement of humans with AI?
Of course, yeah. So just as any powerful technology, if you look at the atoms, you can build it for nuclear energy, but you can also build really this crazy war bombs and just create huge destruction with just as with every big technology. You have these ups and downs, and one big downside, of course, for AI is that the people who are building it need to be aware of, not replicating structures that already exist in society. So biases is something that we very early saw in machine learning technology that you can see already in developments, people putting a lot of interest on. But I think AI is gonna disrupt societies, and you will have to, as regulators, as policymakers, but also as entrepreneurs, be aware of how can I include the technology in a way that people can still have time to adapt to it, right? Because without humans, it's not going to work. Without us playing a very important part, at least in the beginning, it's not going to work. But yeah, I would totally say that there needs to be measures of AI, or individual agents not acting autonomously in the world without any guardrails, right? Creating copies of themselves on other servers, or also, giving themselves narratives of reaching something that they will ultimately reach if they can copy themselves multiple times. So I think regulation in that part, we need to be aware of it. But then if you are a human being, an entrepreneur who builds something like that, you don't want to build something that is also a threat to you. So I believe in the let's say the goodness of all humans to come together and build ethical AI, right? And we still haven't really understood what that means. And I truly believe that this is the new age of philosophers, right? There's a lot of philosophy that needs to be done, a lot of thinking that needs to be done on, how does the notion of authenticity change, originality change? You have these great philosophers like Walter Benjamin from the Frankfurt School who thought about this, but this all gonna be disrupted even more. And I think we need to build these ethical frameworks, and we are still at the beginning of it. But I'm very optimistic that we will build them, and we will find ways to stick to them, and build AI that actually benefits humanity and not takes something from our experience of being human away.
How should, in your eyes, an ethical AI look like?
So that's a very, I think we can fill a whole podcast on that one. But ethical in the first sense is that the AI is, acting in a way that it benefits humanity, and it and that is, very, very simple, very easy to find out if you use it, and people use it. They can tell you right away, is this good for me or not? The second thing is ethical also means in the sense of AI, in my opinion, that these powerful technologies are also in the hands of people who wouldn't get the technology. If there wouldn't be like special programs to provide the technology for them. So creating this, a little bit more just environments where many different actors can bring in their ways of talking to the AI, their ways of, prompting the system, and also, their needs and desires to the AI. I think this will create, in the end, AIs that understand better what it means to be human, in many different facets. So, yeah, in that sense, democratizing the innovation is very important. And I will also say ethical AI is, AI that, in my opinion, should not act completely without guardrails, autonomously in the world, because then we have a probability that a high probability that it will change its path, can be manipulated easily, and replicate itself.
I don't have technical knowledge. That's also why I have to ask the question: how can one build this guardrails?
So that's a very good question, and I think there are many different paths. Again, I think I could respond to that, but let me say this: I think something like the EU AI Act of the European Union is a very good basic fundament of what we should think of, right? If you have different verticals, you shouldn't take, you shouldn't take the data of people's faces and store them and save them, measure their emotions to understand their behaviors, and then give, for example, a barkeeper less money if he or she smiled less, right? This is something I think just doesn't sound right. If you think about it, this is why I always say, think about things that you, very back, to some of the philosophers, if you don't want it to happen to yourself, why should it happen to someone else, right? So I think it's a foundation. Of course, these guardrails, they so I would say the EU AI Act is a very good foundation. Of course, it hinders innovation, so it has to be done with delicacy, right? And not putting more restrictions on companies. So yeah, no need for technical knowledge, just need for your very natural sense of being human.
Yeah.
So also, what you see a lot in social media, but also from the news, is that Europe has been a bit behind the show in the term of AI. Obviously, the US has been the pioneer, but also you see strong models from China, for example, DeepSeek that just came out. I think the most strong AI from Europe is now Mistral AI. But how do you see this? Is Europe late to the show, or are we going the right direction, or how do you see it?
So we, of course, currently we are late to the show, but I still believe that we are at the beginning of the journey of this AI revolution, and that we have so much potential in Europe. We have all these very intelligent people. We have a strong economy, and we also have maybe most importantly we have all this strong industry and the data that is within these expert models that that will actually change a lot of areas in science. So I think we are at the beginning. Europe should start to invest more, but it also should start to change its mindset and open more towards founders, and create an environment for founders to also act within Europe, which is now happening. It's going to be Europe-wide taxes if you act within Europe, across boundaries. So it's all going into the right direction. It just takes time. And as we saw with DeepSeek, the narrative doesn't always have to be more and more with more money to create better models. Innovation can happen in the small things. I really truly see a huge potential with our industry. But again, going back to my initial comments in the beginning of the podcast, you have to find new business models, how these companies also open up to, a more collaborative development of technology. And this is a real challenge, and it will take policymakers, and it will take very, very founders that are very convinced of themselves to change the minds of so many people in industry that just sit on their data. So it's a mix of money and mindset. And I think we're going in the right direction.
I'm just wondering, how do you build an ethical AI with AdaIQ?
So we actually anonymize all of the things that we get, and we also don't work with fast fashion, for example, right? You could think of, if you build a system that can generate designs that are with a higher probability aligned with market demands, then you could just use that to produce crazy amounts of products, right? And we are very aware of that. And I would say that we would not work with fast fashion companies.
So you lose also a lot of revenue because of that, or how is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the culture, part of like it's part of the values, and I would say that as a co-founder, this would be something that wouldn't be at least in my part of values, and I would demonstrate against it.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about reflection in this podcast. Maybe reflecting on your journey. What were some of your mistakes that you think you've done, and things you would have done differently, or things we can maybe avoid in our future?
Right. I love to give advice. I always do it for my nephews and nieces. And they always say you sound like an 80-year-old. But let me say this. Actually, let me think about it for a second. I mean, there is so much. But let me say this. You always need people who have a good heart. But it sounds very simple. It's very easy. People who actually want to see you successful are the ones that you should have in your life. It's very difficult sometimes to differentiate that between other people. But I think stick to people that you like, and also I would say that you don't need to have all the resources that people always talk about to get something. As I said before, just go to a library, get the books that you want, read about it, and write your, a business model out of nothing, create slides, reach out to 100 people that you want to pitch it to. At least 2% will come back to you and say, okay, I'll listen to your pitch. I think this is the second thing. You don't need resources to change the world. You need it later if you want to make it big, but you will get there in the beginning. If going this step from 0 to 1, you don't need it. And the last thing is listen, right? Learn to listen. Don't talk too much. Listen to not only your customers, to all people that are around you. As I said before, as a founder, you get, especially when you get a stage like at MIT or so, you become very fond of your ideas. And I would say, the most important thing is to listen, be open-minded, and see opportunities outside. Yeah.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for having me.
Pleasure.
Thank you.